Hallelujah to my Christian family out there, my Christian brothers, my Christian sisters. And I wanted to talk about not being discouraged. Because I remember, and this is part of my testimony, when I got incarcerated at one point in my life. I was maybe 18 going on 19, or I was either 17 going on 18. I'm 32 now. And I was incarcerated for a year. And I graduated high school when I was incarcerated for this year. And when I had gotten released, I had gotten released like after I graduated with a GED, right? I had to guess the whole GED and stuff. But when I got released, even then I didn't know I was institutionalized at all at this time in my life. And nobody else around me knew that I was institutionalized either. I didn't have any kind of counseling, any kind of therapy, anything like that. And that's a big issue with individuals. And I just had these diabolical anger issues, really big anger issues, and nobody understood me. Nobody understood me. And I didn't even understand myself at this time in my life. I didn't understand myself. But that discouraged me big time, because I knew deep down I had a flaw that I didn't know how to fix myself. I just didn't know how to fix it. And so for me, time stopped for me, and then it just seemed like everybody else was just passing me up in life at one point. That's just what it felt like in like my early 20s. Because me dealing with so much psychologically, it ruined my head really bad. Like even with my dad, he got shot. You know, when I was right before I got locked up, my dad had got shot with a gun. You know, he got shot with a gun, and then I got incarcerated, and I was dealing with just so much stress, man. And as a kid, you know, you don't know how to take these things in, and so you have no choice really to be discouraged at these types of points in your life when you're too immature and too young to understand what's actually going on in your life. Because a lot of things, even though I personally believe everything, if not almost everything, happens for a reason, there's a lot of things that do happen that God does not mean for us to go through. You know, God does not want us to go through a lot of the things that we do go through in life. And I was discouraged for the next maybe 7 years after that. Maybe 7, 8 years to have any drive to do anything or even continue with life. Because like my dad was kind of like, he's like your superhero of your life, you know what I mean? I was raised by my dad. I moved in with him in 5th grade. And so your father kind of becomes like your superhero, you know, like your guardian angel per se, you know. And then for your guardian angel to get severely wounded in battle, and then you just go be incarcerated how Jesus was. And you don't know how to take all that in. You know, my dad gets shot, and then I get incarcerated for a year. You don't know how to take any of that stuff in at that age, you know, being in your late teens and still a boy, you know. And I never really was able to sit down and talk to anybody about that kind of stuff. Because I remember my dad was a healthy man, you know, getting up, going to work every day how I do. And then my dad, he got shot in his femur, right in his femur. His femur snapped and the bullet hit it. And ever since then, he's been like, I mean, he could walk, but it really degraded the daily comfort of his life every day. But it didn't only degrade the comfort of his life, it also degraded the daily comfort of my life. Because my dad, he went through a lot while he was healing from that. And it probably put a lot of trauma on him as well. And so even as a kid, like growing up, even in my early 20s when I was around my dad, I got to deal with the trauma that he's dealing with realistically. And then I still have to deal with me being institutionalized at that point in my life. And so I could only understand from that degree people who lost their father or their mother, at that early of an age. And how bad that can mess with your head. Because I was discouraged for many years after that. And I remember just some point in my life, I came up with this thing. And I know other people do it, but this is just what I call it, where I just go live in my own world. And for me, I call that world Silent Hill. Like you guys know Silent Hill, the video game. I grew up playing that franchise. I played Silent Hill 1 on PlayStation when I was a little kid. And Silent Hill is basically like Alex Shepard, Henry Townsend, Heather Mason, Harry Mason, Murphy Pendleton, James Sunderland. They go to Silent Hill and they're looking for answers. And they're looking for answers within their own crazy brain, basically, their own sin, something like that. It's hard to explain. But that's what gave me comfort, realistically, and that's what gave me the will to basically want to see myself different. And that's the thing, is you want to be able to see yourself different no matter what life presented to you. No matter what your reality was, you still want to be able to see yourself different. Because even though this reality is presented to us, it doesn't mean that it's actually supposed to define our future for us. You know what I mean? So even then, let's say if I suffer what my dad did, and let's say I get out of commission for like a whole year or two because of some kind of a crazy injury, it doesn't mean that that should define the rest of my future. So no matter what position we are in life, right? No matter what your finances look like, no matter what your body looks like, no matter what. Even then, I had a speech impediment. I didn't fix that until like 2022, maybe 2023. I only fully fixed my speech impediment that I kind of had. It wasn't bad, but I had one. I fixed that maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. But it doesn't define our future. And so no matter what position in life we are in, the way that Jesus Christ set it up is to where we could always reverse our situation. No matter what the situation is, we can always reverse it, as long as we put our faith in Him. as long as we trust on the Lord and not our own understanding. Because dealing with all that kind of trauma, all that kind of stress and depression, unnecessary trauma as well, right? Unnecessary trauma. It's so easy for most people to run to alcohol, run to drugs, run to sleeping around, and run to sex and stuff. And then at one point, it probably did turn me decently bitter at some point. But that's what I do, is I deploy to somewhere called Silent Hill. And I don't live in a fantasy land. But what I do is I just live in my own world. Because for too long, I lived in a world that other people defined for me. Could have been friends, could have been family, could have been whoever. The world. Could have been whoever. But I stopped living in this world that other people defined for me, right? I stopped living in the world that other people defined for me. I just started defining my own world for myself. And then that's when my world actually started becoming what I started thinking it to be. I was obese. I started working at this warehouse. 2 or 3 chicks there like me, even when I was obese. Our reality, unfortunately, can be presented to us from an external point of view, and it won't even be real. But we might think it's real because we get deceived by demons and devils. But when I started living in my own world, it kind of allowed Jesus Christ to enter into my world and kind of say, hey, Naj, this is this, son. That's that. This is this. That's that. These people are these people. Those people are those people. This location is that location. So, whoop-de-whoop. So whatever I'm not a part of spiritually, I'm not going to be a part of physically. Simple as that. And so the main reason why we are discouraged is because we are living in a false reality that other people present to us. And that reality becomes so real, it is now a part of my world. So even when I go lock myself into isolation, into this basement, right, in this basement that I'm in, I'm still living in other people's world. And so I feel like they're still looking at me. I feel like I'm in my own world, but these other people are just like this looking at me. And so I'm just like this, like, oh, I can't change anything. I better not move. I better not move. Because in that voice in my head is going to say, hey, don't touch that glove, dude. Don't go outside. Don't do this. Don't put in that application. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then all the things that we're not supposed to do, this voice is going to tell us to do it. Because we're living in someone else's world, and it was so powerful that in our own world, we feel like all the wrong stuff is the right things to do. Like eating buckets of KFC, eating a whole pack of Oreos in a day, drinking 10 sodas a week and stuff. So understand that. And once we understand that as human beings, we can actually start to form our own world in a biblical manner. God bless me.